Hi guys, and welcome to Bedtime History Relaxing. Tonight we slip quietly into the narrow sloping space above a London household, where the air is thin, the wood creaks with every shift, and your breath meets the cold before it has even fully left your body. You wake before the day has properly begun, not because you feel rested, but because something in you has learned that lingering too long is a kind of risk. The light is barely there. The sounds of the city have not yet gathered into their usual rhythm. And already your day is waiting. You probably will not survive this in the way you imagine comfort should feel, but you will endure it because people like you always have. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like sharing, let me know where you are in the world and what time it is for you right now. There is something quietly comforting about knowing where we all are as we drift into these stories together. Now, dim the lights. You do not sit up all at once. The first thing you notice is the stiffness. It settles into you during the night, creeping into your shoulders, your lower back, your hands curled slightly tighter than you remember leaving them. The pallet beneath you is thin, little more than layered straw contained in rough ticking, and it has shifted in the night. You can feel the unevenness pressing into your side. A broadly accepted historical understanding is that many servants in London, around 1700, slept in shared or cramped attic spaces, often with minimal bedding and little insulation from the cold. You feel that truth now, in a way that does not need explanation. The cold is not sharp enough to shock you awake. It is quieter than that. It lingers steady and patient, waiting for you to move so it can follow. You open your eyes a little more. The ceiling above you slopes low beams, cutting across at angles that make the space feel smaller than it already is. In some places, you could reach up and touch the wood without fully extending your arm. There is a faint smell of old timber dust and something softer beneath it, perhaps the lingering scent of worn fabric, or breath held too long in one place. You listen. For a moment there is almost nothing. Then slowly the house reveals itself. A faint shift below, the quiet settling of boards. Somewhere far off a distant wheel against cobblestone. London is not silent even at this hour. It only lowers its voice. You draw a slow breath and the air feels cool as it enters, cooler than your skin, cooler than the space beneath your blanket. You notice how it settles in your chest, how it makes you aware of each inhale in a way that would be easy to ignore in warmth. There is no bell yet, no voice calling your name, but you know the timing. You have learned it not by clock, but by habit, by the rhythm of the household, by the quiet understanding that someone must be awake before anyone else even considers rising. You shift slightly and the straw beneath you rustles in a dry, whispering way. It is a small sound, but in the stillness it feels louder than it should. You pause listening again, half expecting a response, though you know there will be none. A curious detail noted in some accounts is that servants often developed an acute awareness of sound not out of preference, but necessity. You feel that now as your attention moves outward, measuring the quiet, interpreting it, making sure that nothing unexpected has already begun without you. You push the blanket aside. The cold meets you more directly now. It touches your arms first, then your neck, then settles along your back as you sit up. For a moment you remain still in that position, letting your body adjust rather than rushing forward. Historians still argue whether servants experienced these early mornings as a kind of dull resignation, or whether many simply adapted so completely that the routine itself became its own form of stability. You consider that without fully forming the thought. It is not something you have time to debate. It is simply what is. You bring your feet down carefully. The floor is colder than the air. The wood holds the night more stubbornly, and the sensation travels quickly upward, sharp but brief. You shift your weight, allowing your body to adjust just as you did with the air. Around you, the shapes of other pallets become clearer as your eyes settle into the dimness. There are others here, though not all are awake yet. You can hear one's slow, steady breathing nearby. Another shifts faintly, then stills again. You move quietly. There is an unspoken understanding in this space. The first to rise does so without disturbing the rest. not out of kindness alone, but because everyone will have their turn soon enough. Your hands move over your clothing where it rests beside you. The fabric feels rough, familiar, slightly stiff in places where it has dried from the previous day. You do not put it on yet, not quite. There is a moment, small but real, where you simply exist between sleeping and working. It does not last long. Another faint sound rises from below. A door, perhaps, or a shift of something heavier. The house is beginning quietly to wake beneath you. You draw another breath. The air still feels cool, but less startling now. Your body has begun to meet it halfway. You lean forward slightly, resting your elbows on your knees, your hands loosely together. For a brief moment you allow yourself to feel the stillness not as emptiness, but as space. A pause before movement, a quiet before expectation. Then slowly you straighten again. The day does not rush you. It does not need to. It knows you will come to it. You reach for your clothes. The fabric brushes against your fingers, grounding real, already carrying the faint memory of yesterday's work. As you begin to dress, the motions come easily, almost without thought. Each movement is small, efficient, practiced. There is no mirror here, no need for one. You already know what you look like, and more importantly, you know what is expected. Below the house continues its soft awakening. A faint clatter now, the suggestion of footsteps. The world is assembling itself, piece by piece, and you are already part of it, already moving within its shape. You pull your sleeve into place, adjusting it with a small tug. Your shoulders settle. The stiffness has not vanished, but it has changed. It has become something you carry rather than something that stops you. You stand. The ceiling feels closer when you're upright. You instinctively lower your head slightly as you move, avoiding the beams without needing to think about them. For a moment you pause again, not because you are unsure, but because this is the last quiet moment that belongs mostly to you. You take it in. The dim light, the stillness, the soft breathing of those not yet awake, the faint hum of a city not fully begun. Then you turn towards the narrow stairs, and without hurry, without hesitation, you begin to descend into the day that has already been waiting for you. You move down the narrow stairs with care, your hand brushing lightly against the wall to guide your steps in the dimness. The wood beneath your feet gives a soft, familiar creak with each shift of weight. It is a sound you no longer notice in the way you once might have. Now it simply belongs to the house like breath belongs to a body. At the bottom you pause. The air here is different. Slightly warmer, though not by much. It carries faint traces of yesterday, smoke that never fully left, cooked fat lingering in the grain of the wood, damp cloth somewhere unseen. The scent is layered, settled, lived in. You draw your shoulders back a little, as if preparing yourself, though. The motion is subtle enough that no one would remark on it. Dressing must come next. Your clothing waits where you left it, folded in a way that is more practical than careful. You reach for your shirt first. The fabric feels cool and slightly rough, its texture familiar against your fingers. It has been washed, though not recently enough to feel soft. Cleanliness here is measured differently. Not by freshness, but by absence of offence. A commonly accepted fact about domestic service in early 18th century London is that servants were expected to maintain a neat and respectable appearance even when their garments were worn patched or second-hand. You understand that expectation not as a rule written somewhere, but as something that lives quietly in every glance from above. You slip the shirt over your head. The fabric settles against your skin, cool at first, then slowly warming where it touches you. You pull it down, smoothing it without thinking, your hands moving along the seams, checking without needing to see. There is no mirror. Even if there were, it would not be for you. Instead, you rely on habit, on the feel of the cloth, on the memory of how it should sit. You adjust the collar slightly, then the sleeves, tugging them into place so they fall evenly at your wrists. A small thing. But small things matter here. A curious detail found in some records suggests that servants were often judged not by the richness of their clothing, but by how carefully it was maintained. A loose thread, a stain, a crooked fastening. These could speak louder than any words you might offer. You think of that as your fingers move along the edge of your cuff, pressing it flat. Next comes your outer layer. Heavier, slightly stiffer. the kind of garment that holds its shape even when your body beneath it is tired. You slip your arms into it, feeling the resistance for a moment before it settles into place. It carries a faint smell of smoke and work, not unpleasant, just present. You fasten it carefully, each tie, each button done with quiet precision. There is no rush in your movements, but there is no delay either. You have learned the pace that keeps you from drawing attention. Too slow invites notice, too fast invites mistakes. You stand still for a moment once you are dressed, not out of vanity, but out of habit. You feel the weight of the clothing on your shoulders, the way it sits along your back, the slight restriction at your arms. It is not uncomfortable, not exactly, just firm, a reminder that your body moves within expectations. Historians still debate whether servants internalize these standards as a form of discipline, or whether they simply adapted out of necessity, shaping themselves to fit the space they occupied. You do not pause to decide which is true. You simply exist within it. Your hands move briefly over your hair. There is little you can do with it here, but you smooth it as best you can, pressing it into place. Clean enough, orderly enough, that is the goal. You glance down at your hands. There are small marks there. Faint traces of work that do not fully disappear. The skin is slightly rough, the nails short, practical. You rub your thumb lightly against your palm as if testing the surface, then let your hands fall to your sides. Another sound rises from deeper within the house. A door opening. This time closer. You feel the shift in the air, not physically, but in the sense that the house is no longer only yours to move through. Others are waking now. Others will expect. You take a step forward, then another. The corridor stretches ahead, dim but more defined now as your eyes adjust. The walls seem closer here than they did when you first arrived in this place. Or perhaps you have simply grown used to moving within narrower spaces. You pass a small window. The light outside is still weak, more suggestion than presence. A pale grey that hints at morning without fully delivering it. You pause for the briefest moment, just enough to notice it. London is there beyond the glass. Not yet loud, not yet crowded, but waiting. A quirky detail sometimes noted by observers of the time is that servants often experience the city in fragments rather than as a whole. A glimpse through a window, a quick step outside on an errand, the sound of wheels and voices carried inward. You feel that separation now. The world beyond is real but distant. Your place is here within these walls. You move on. The floor beneath your feet changes slightly as you step from one section of the house to another. A subtle shift in the grain of the wood, the way it responds to your weight. You notice it without thinking. Your body adjusts automatically. Ahead, a faint glow begins to form. Not bright, just enough to suggest that someone else has already begun their tasks. A candle, perhaps, or the early work of the kitchen fire. You feel a small tightening in your chest. Not fear, not quite. Something closer to readiness. You straighten slightly as you approach the source of the light. Your steps remain quiet, but there is a new awareness in them now. A sense that you are no longer moving through a private space, but entering a shared one where your presence will be seen, measured, expected. Your hand brushes lightly against your sleeve again. A final check. You do not look down this time. You trust the work you have already done. The glow grows stronger as you near the turn in the corridor. Shadows shift along the walls, moving gently with the flicker of the flame that creates them. You round the corner, and there it is. The first true sign that the day has begun. A single candle set low, its flame steady but soft, casting just enough light to shape the room around it. Beyond it, the faint outline of movement. Another servant, perhaps already at work. You slow for a fraction of a second. Not enough to be noticed. Just enough to gather yourself. Then you step forward into the light. You step fully into the faint circle of candlelight, and for a moment the world feels smaller, more contained. The shadows settle behind you and the shape of the room ahead becomes clearer. A narrow passage leads toward the main corridors of the house, and beyond that the spaces where the family will soon expect warmth, order, and quiet readiness. The other servant barely looks up. A brief glance. A recognition that does not need words. Then their attention returns to their task, hands moving steadily as though the morning has already claimed them completely. You do the same. There is no formal greeting here, not at this hour, only shared understanding. You move past them and into the wider corridor. The air shifts again as you enter. It feels still untouched by fire or breath holding on to the last of the night. The walls seem taller here, the ceiling higher, the space more open. But with that openness comes a different kind of pressure. This is where the household exists in its visible form, where everything must appear effortless even though nothing about it is. Your first task waits without announcing itself. You already know what it is. A widely recognised aspect of domestic life in London around 1700 is that servants were responsible for preparing the house before the family awoke, especially by lighting fires in key rooms to ensure warmth and comfort. You feel the weight of that responsibility as you turn toward the drawing room. The door opens with soft resistance. Inside the room is cold, not sharply, not cruelly, but deeply. The kind of cold that has settled into the furniture, into the curtains, into the very air itself. It does not rush at you. It simply exists, waiting to be changed. You step in and close the door behind you. For a moment you stand still. The room is dim, lit only by the faint spill of light from the corridor. Shapes emerge slowly, the outline of a chair, the edge of a table, the heavy drape of fabric along the walls. You move toward the hearth. Your steps are careful, measured not out of fear, but out of habit. You have learned how to move in these spaces without disturbing them, without leaving traces that do not belong. The fireplace sits silent, its blackened interior holding the memory of yesterday's fire. There is ash there, pale and soft layered over the remains of what once gave warmth. You kneel. The stone beneath your knees is cold even through the fabric of your clothing. You lean forward slightly, bringing your hands toward the hearth. A small pause, then you begin. You clear the ash first, your movement steady, practiced. The texture shifts under your fingers, fine and dry, lifting into the air in the smallest, faintest cloud before settling again. You keep your breathing slow, careful not to disturb more than necessary. A lesser-known detail mentioned in some household accounts is that managing ash was considered an essential daily task, as leftover residue could smother a new fire if not properly removed. You feel that truth in the way you work, in the attention you give to each small movement. Once the space is cleared, you arrange the kindling. Small pieces first. Light, dry, positioned so that air can move between them. You have done this enough times that your hands know the spacing without needing to measure it. Each piece placed with a quiet intention. Then the larger wood, heavier, slower to catch, but necessary for what will come after. You sit back slightly on your heels and look at your work. It is not a grand thing, just wood and oil space, and the promise of heat. But it must be right. Historians still argue whether servants took pride in these small acts of preparation, or whether the repetition dulled any sense of accomplishment over time. You feel something in between, not pride exactly, but a quiet satisfaction when things are set as they should be. You reach for the flint. The metal feels cool in your hand, solid, dependable. You position it carefully, bringing it close to the kindling. Your other hand holds the steel. There is a brief pause. Then you strike. The sound is sharp in the quiet room. A quickly note that seems louder than it should be. A spark jumps small and bright, then disappears. You adjust slightly. Strike again. This time the spark catches. For a moment it is almost nothing. A faint glow barely visible against the pale wood. Then it grows slowly, gently feeding on the drying sauce. The kindling. You lean closer, watching. The flame begins to form. It moves softly at first, testing its shape, then steadies, reaching upward in small flickering motions. You remain still, allowing it to find its place, resisting the urge to interfere too soon. The warmth comes gradually. At first you do not feel it. Then slowly it touches your hands, your face, a subtle shift that spreads outward from the hearth. You sit there for a moment longer than necessary, not out of delay, but because this is the first warmth of the day, and it belongs in part to you. Then you rise. There is more to do. You move through the room, adjusting what needs to be adjusted. A chair slightly out of place, a cloth smoothed along the edge of a table. small details that might never be noticed if done correctly, but would stand out immediately if neglected. A quirky observation recorded in some descriptions of servant life is that much of their work was defined by invisibility, meaning that success was measured by the absence of complaint rather than the presence of praise. You carry that understanding with you as you straighten a fold of fabric, your fingers moving lightly over its surface. The light in the room begins to change, not from the window, not yet, but from the fire. It grows stronger, casting a warmer tone across the walls, softening the edges of everything it touches. You step back towards the hearth. The flames are steady now, not large but certain. You watch them for a brief moment, noting the way they move, the way the wood begins to darken, to shift, to accept the change. Then you turn toward the door. There are other rooms, other fires, other spaces waiting to be brought into readiness before the household above you begins to stir. You open the door quietly and step back into the corridor. The air feels different now. Not warmer, not yet, but changed, because you have begun, and the day, whether it announces itself or not, is already unfolding around you. You carry the quiet warmth of that first fire with you as you move further along the corridor, though it fades quickly with each step. The house does not hold heat easily. Each room must be persuaded, coaxed into comfort one hearth at a time, and so you continue. The kitchen announces itself before you even reach it, not with noise at first, but with scent. A faint trace of smoke, thicker than before, something slightly sharper perhaps from last night's grease warming again as embers are stirred. It lingers in the air, guiding you forward. When you reach the doorway, the difference is immediate. Here the cold has already begun to retreat. The hearth is alive, not fully roaring yet, but steady glowing, the kind of fire that suggests someone has been here for some time already. The room feels fuller because of it. Warmer, yes, but also more present, more awake. You step inside. The space is larger than the rooms above, but it feels more crowded. Tables, benches, hanging tools, stacked pots, all arranged in ways that make sense only once you have learned them. Every surface carries signs of use. Every object has a place, even if that place shifts throughout the day. The cook stands near the fire. You recognize the posture before you even see the face. Upright, grounded, entirely certain of where they belong. Their hands move with a rhythm that does not pause, adjusting something over the flame, then reaching for another task without hesitation. You do not speak. Not yet. You move instead to your place within this space, slipping into the flow without drawing attention. It is not that you are unseen, it is that you are expected. A well-established historical observation is that the kitchen in a household like this functioned as the centre of servant life, both in labour and in social structure, with the cook often holding significant authority over other staff. You feel that structure in the air itself. It shapes how you stand, how you move, even how you breathe within the room. You reach for what needs doing, a pot to be shifted, a surface to be cleared. Your hands find the work quickly guided by the memory more than thought. The motions are small, efficient, continuous. The warmth from the fire touches your face more fully now. It is not gentle. It comes in waves, uneven, stronger when you step closer, fading when you turn away. You feel it settle into your skin, loosening some of the tightness left from the cold above. For a brief moment, it is almost comforting. Then the next task arrives. A voice, low but firm, gives direction. Not loud, not sharp, but clear enough that it does not need repeating. You respond without hesitation, adjusting your movement, shifting your attention to what has been asked. There is a rhythm here. It is not calm in the way the attic was calm. It is active, layered, constantly changing. The fire demands attention. The tools demand care. The people within the space move around one another with practiced awareness. A lesser known but documented detail is that kitchens in large homes often began work hours before the family awoke, meaning that for servants the day effectively started in this space long before it became visible elsewhere in the house. You feel that early start in the way everything's already in motion. You pass near the hearth again. This time the heat feels stronger, almost pressing against you. You adjust your position instinctively, turning slightly so that it meets you more evenly. Too close and it overwhelms. Too far and the chill returns. Balance becomes second nature. You notice the sounds now. Not loud, not chaotic, but constant. The soft scrape of metal against metal. The shifting of wood in the fire. The quiet movement of feet across the floor. Each sound blends into the next, forming a kind of background rhythm that guides the work without needing to be acknowledged. A curious and slightly unusual note found in some accounts is that kitchens were among the few places where servants could speak more freely, though always within limits, as long as the work continued without interruption. You sense that possibility here, though it has not yet taken shape this morning. The focus is still too fresh, the day too new. You continue your tasks, wiping, carrying, adjusting. Each action leads into the next without pause. There is no clear beginning or end to any single task. They overlap, merge, shift as needed. You begin to understand something deeper. The work is not a list, it is a flow, and you are part of it. From time to time your gaze lifts, not fully, not in a way that would suggest distraction, but enough to take in the room as a whole, to see where others are, how they move, what might be needed next. You learn to anticipate, not because you're told to, but because it makes everything smoother, quieter, less likely to draw correction. Some scholars continue to discuss whether this kind of anticipation was taught directly or developed gradually through observation and necessity. You feel it forming in you now in small ways as your hands begin to move towards things before you are asked. The fire shifts. A log settles, sending a brief scatter of sparks upward before they disappear. You glance toward it, noting the change, then return to your work. Someone else will tend it, or perhaps you will in a moment. Time moves differently here. It does not stretch, it does not linger. It moves forward in steady, continuous motion marked not by hours, but by tasks completed and tasks beginning. You feel your body adjusting. The stiffness from earlier has eased, replaced by a different kind of awareness. Your muscles are engaged now. Your movements more fluid, your balance more certain. You belong to the rhythm, at least for now. You reach for another cloth, folding it quickly, placing it where it will be needed. Your hands move with increasing confidence, each action fitting into the larger pattern of the room. The light outside begins to shift, though you do not see it directly. You feel it instead. A slight change in the tone of the space, a subtle brightening that seeps in through cracks and edges, mixing with the firelight to create something new. Morning is approaching, not fully arrived, but close, and you are already deep within it. The rhythm of the kitchen does not pause when you settle into it. If anything, it tightens, becoming more defined as the light outside slowly strengthens. What was once preparation begins to shift toward expectation. Soon the household above will wake, and when it does, everything must already be in place. You feel that change before it is spoken. A small increase in pace, a glance from the cook that lingers a moment longer than before, the repositioning of items so they are within easier reach. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet tightening of purpose. Then the first call comes, not loud, not sharp, but clear enough to carry through the corridor. A bell perhaps, or a voice from above. It is distant but unmistakable. Someone is awake. You do not stop what you are doing. Instead, you adjust. A well-known detail of large households in early 18th century London is that servants responded to a complex system of bells or verbal summons, each indicating a specific room or need. You have learned to recognize the patterns, to interpret them quickly, to move before hesitation can settle in. Another sound follows, closer this time. A request passed down, carried from one servant to another until it reaches the kitchen. Hot water, quickly. You set down what you are holding. There is no discussion, no negotiation. You move. The kettle is already near the fire, but not yet ready. You lift it, feeling the weight, the warmth beginning to build along its surface, and you adjust its position, bringing it closer to the heat, feeding the flame slightly so it responds faster. The fire answers in its own way, brightening, shifting, sending a stronger wave of warmth outward. You wait, but not idly. Your hands move to other small tasks while the water heats. Clearing a space, adjusting over cloth, always moving, always aware of the next demand that might arrive before the current one is complete. A lesser remarked but practical reality is that servants often handle multiple overlapping tasks, rarely finishing one before beginning another. You feel that overlap now, your attention divided, but steady your body moving through it without confusion. The kettle begins to hum softly. Not loud enough to dominate the room, but enough to signal that it is nearly ready. You reach for it again, testing the handle briefly before lifting it fully. The heat is present now, pressing through the material, reminding you to move carefully. You turn toward the door. Before you reach it, another instruction arrives. Not for you this time, but it changes your path. A tray must be prepared, bread cut and arranged, a cup placed just so. You adjust your movement instantly, setting the kettle down for a moment, shifting your focus. There is no frustration in the change, only adaptation. You take the knife. The blade moves through the bread with a steady resistance, the crust firm, the inside softer, yielding in a way that feels almost quiet. You cut evenly, each piece measured by eye rather than tool. A curious observation noted in some writings is that servants often developed a kind of silent precision, performing tasks accurately without drawing attention to the effort behind them. You sense that precision in your own movements now, in the way your hands adjust without hesitation. The tray comes together quickly, bread placed, cup aligned, cloth straightened. Nothing elaborate, but nothing careless either. You lift it. The weight is manageable, balanced carefully between your hands. You turn again toward the door, this time continuing without interruption. The corridor greets you with cooler air. After the warmth of the kitchen, it feels sharper, more defined. You notice it immediately, the way it brushes against your face, your hands, the parts of you not protected by fabric. Your steps remain steady. You have learned how to carry without spilling, how to move without drawing attention, how to arrive without appearing hurried. Above you, the house is waking more fully now. Footsteps, a door opening, the faint murmur of voices beginning their day in a very different way than yours. You reach the base of the stairs. They rise before you, narrow, turning slightly as they climb. You shift the tray slightly, adjusting your grip, then begin to ascend. Each step is deliberate. The wood beneath your feet responds with a soft sound, but you keep it as quiet as possible, placing your weight carefully, evenly. Halfway up, you pause for the briefest moment, not out of fatigue, but to listen. Another call echoes faintly from above. Different tone, different need. You store it away without fully focusing on it yet, one task at a time, but never only one. Some scholars continue to explore whether servants experience this constant demand as overwhelming, or whether the repetition created a kind of mental rhythm that made it manageable. You feel that rhythm now, not as calm but as continuity, one action flowing into the next. You reach the top. The air here is different again, less cold than the lower corridors, but not warm. It carries a faint scent of fabric, of polished wood, of something more refined, though still distant. You move toward the room indicated by the earlier call. The door stands slightly open. You do not enter immediately. Instead, you adjust your posture, your grip, your presence. Small changes, straightening your back, settling your shoulders, ensuring that everything appears as it should. Then you step forward. Inside the room is larger, more open, the furnishings more elaborate than anything below. Curtains hang heavy along the walls. A bed still partially occupied dominates the space. You lower your gaze slightly, not fully down, but enough. You move toward the table, placing the tray with care, ensuring that nothing shifts, nothing sounds louder than necessary. A voice acknowledges you, brief, distant. You respond with the smallest indication, then step back. There is no lingering. You turn and leave the room as quietly as you entered. The door closes behind you with a soft, controlled motion. And just like that, you are already on your way to the next demand, the next call, the next movement that will carry you further into a day that has only just begun. You descend the stairs again with empty hands, but not with an empty mind. The moment you leave that room, behind your attention shifts forward, already searching for what comes next. There is no pause between tasks, only a brief thinning of effort before the next demand fills it again. The corridor greets you with its familiar stillness, though it no longer feels quiet in the same way. The house is awake now. Not fully, not loudly, but enough that every movement you make exists within a wider pattern of expectation. You return to the kitchen. The warmth meets you first, pressing gently against your face and hands, easing the edge of the cooler air you carried down with you. The fire has grown stronger. Someone has fed it in your absence, and now it burns with more confidence, its light reaching further into the corners of the room. You step back into the rhythm without needing to be guided. Water must be carried. You already know this. A commonly observed reality of urban life in London at the turn of the 18th century is that most homes did not have running water requiring servants to fetch and transport it by hand from pumps, wells, or stored barrels. The simplicity of that fact disappears the moment you begin the task. It is no longer an idea, it is weight. You reach for the buckets. They are not empty, not fully, but not full enough either. You lift one slightly, testing it, feeling the shift of water inside, the way it moves against the sides, creating a subtle imbalance that your hands must correct. Then you lift the second. Together they are manageable, but only just. You move toward the door that leads to the yard. The air changes the moment you step outside. It is colder here, more open, carrying with it the faint smell of damp earth, and something sharper beneath it, perhaps refuse, perhaps the residue of the city itself. London does not hide its scents, it simply layers them. You cross the yard carefully. The ground is uneven in places, and you have learned where to step without needing to look directly. Your body remembers even when your attention is divided. The pump stands near the far wall. Simple, solid, unyielding. You set the buckets down beside it. For a moment you flex your fingers, releasing the tension that has built in them from carrying the weight. The relief is brief but noticeable. Then you begin again. You grasp the handle and pull. The motion is heavier than it appears. The resistance comes not only from the mechanism, but from the water itself, drawn upward through unseen depths. You pull again and again, finding the rhythm that allows the effort to continue without breaking. The sound of the pump is steady, a low repetitive movement that fills the small space around you. It is not loud, but it is constant marking time in a way that feels different from the quiet ticking of a clock. Water begins to flow, at first only a small stream, then stronger. Clear enough though never entirely clean. You guide it into the bucket, watching as the level rises, the surface shifting with each drop. A less frequently mentioned but practical detail is that water quality in cities like London could vary greatly, and servants were often responsible for managing its use, carefully balancing necessity with availability. You consider that as you watch the bucket fill, aware that every drop has its purpose. You stop before it overflows, the second bucket follows. By the time you finish, your arms feel heavier, your shoulders slightly tighter. The effort settles into your muscles, not sharply but steadily, as if reminding you that this is only the beginning. You lift the buckets again. They are full now. The weight is immediate. It pulls downward, testing your grip, your balance, your strength. You adjust your stance, spreading the effort evenly, then begin the walk back. Each step requires attention. The water shifts with your movement, creating a rhythm of its own, one that you must match if you want to avoid spilling. Too fast and it sloshes, too slow and the strain builds unnecessarily. You find the pace that works, steady, measured, continuous. As you cross the yard, you notice the light has changed again. It is still early, but the grey has softened slightly, hinting at something brighter beyond it. The city is waking more fully now, even if you only sense it through small changes. A distant voice, the faint roll of wheels, a door opening somewhere beyond the walls. You reach the kitchen. The warmth welcomes you back, though this time it meets a body already working, already warm in its own way. You set the buckets down carefully, controlling the motion so that the water settles rather than splashes. There is no time to linger. You begin to distribute the water, some to the hearth, some to the preparation area. Each portion measured by need, not by comfort. Your hands move quickly but not carelessly, transferring, pouring, adjusting. A small moment catches your attention. Your fingers brush the surface of the water. Cool, clear, a contrast to the heat that surrounds you. You withdraw your hand and continue. A curious observation from certain household writings suggests that servants often became attuned to the physical properties of their work, noticing temperature, texture, and weight in ways that shaped how they approached each task. You feel that awareness now, not as a thought, but as a constant presence in your movements. The next task arrives before the current one fully settles. Ash must be removed from another hearth. Cloths must be rinsed. A surface wiped again, though it was already clean. The work does not repeat exactly, but it echoes, returning in slightly different forms. You move through it, Your body adjusts further. The earlier stiffness has almost disappeared now, replaced by a steady engagement of muscle and movement. You feel more awake, though not in a way that brings ease, more in a way that sharpens your focus. Time continues to pass, not marked by hours, but by effort. You pause briefly to shift your grip on a cloth, wringing it out over a basin. The water runs from it in a thin stream, carrying with it the residue of whatever it has just cleaned. You watch it for a moment, then you return to the task. There is always another surface, another need, another small adjustment that keeps the house moving as it should. And you remain within that movement, steady present, already deeper into the day than most above you have yet begun to imagine. The work in the kitchen shifts again as the morning continues to unfold, though not in a way that announces itself clearly. It happens gradually, a subtle rearranging of focus. The tasks that once centered on preparation now begin to align toward presentation. Breakfast must be served. You feel that transition in the way the cook's movements become more precise, more deliberate. There is less adjustment now, less improvisation. What is needed has already been decided. It simply must be brought together in the correct order at the correct moment. You step into that pattern without hesitation. Bread has already been cut, but more is needed. You move to the board, taking up the knife again. The motion is familiar, though your hands feel slightly different now. Warmer, more responsive. The earlier stiffness has been replaced by a steady readiness. The blade moves cleanly. Each slice falls into place beside the last, forming a quiet row of uniform pieces. You do not measure them, yet they remain consistent. Your eye has learned what is acceptable, what will pass without comment. A widely documented feature of servant life in households of this period is that meals for the family required careful timing and coordination, even for something as simple as breakfast. You experience that coordination now, not as a concept, but as a series of small connected actions. A pot is lifted from the fire. You move quickly to make space, clearing an area before it arrives. The surface is already clean, but you wipe it again, smoothing the cloth along its edge, ensuring there is no trace of disorder. The pot settles with a soft, controlled sound. Steam rises faintly from its surface, carrying with it the scent of something simple but sustaining. You notice it for a moment. Then you move on. Your own hunger makes itself known, not sharply, just a quiet presence, a reminder rather than a demand. A less obvious but frequently noted detail is that servants often ate separately from the household, and usually more simply, with their meals fitting around their duties rather than interrupting them. You feel that arrangement now in the way your attention remains fixed on the work even as your body registers the scent of food. You reach for a cup. It must be clean, it must be placed correctly, the handle turned just so. Small things, but they carry weight in a house like this. You align it carefully on the tray, then adjust it again. Not because it was wrong, but because it can be better. An unusual little note found in some personal accounts suggests that servants sometimes develop quiet rituals around arranging objects, finding a kind of calm in the repetition of order. You sense that calm now briefly as your fingers make a final, precise adjustment to the position of the cup. It does not last long. Another instruction arrives. More quickly this time. A different room. A different need. You take in the words without fully stopping what you are doing, your hands continuing their task even as your mind shifts ahead. You finish the tray, bread, cup, a small addition placed at the edge. Everything balanced, nothing out of place. You lift it. The weight is familiar now. You have carried enough this morning that your body understands how to hold it without strain. Your arms adjust automatically, your grip firm but not tight. You move toward the door. The kitchen remains active behind you, but you do not look back. Your focus is forward now on the path you must take, the steps you must climb, the room you must enter. The corridor feels cooler again. The warmth of the kitchen fades quickly, replaced by the steadier air of the house. You notice the contrast, but it no longer surprises you. It has become part of the rhythm of movement. As you walk, you hear voices more clearly now. Not loud, but present. The household is awake. You catch fragments of speech, tones rather than words. A request, a response. The beginning of a day that will unfold very differently above than it does below. Some researchers have explored whether servants felt a sense of distance from the lives they supported, even while moving through the same physical spaces. You sense that distance now, not as separation exactly, but as a difference in how time is experienced, how comfort is defined. You reach the stairs again. This time your steps feel more certain, not because the task is easier, but because you have already begun. You ascend the tray, steady in your hands, your body adjusting to each movement with quiet precision. The sounds of the house grow clearer as you rise, a door opening, a footstep crossing a floor, the faint rustle of fabric. At the top you pause briefly, not out of hesitation, but out of habit, a moment to settle your posture to ensure that everything is as it should be, before you enter a space where you will be seen more directly. You straighten slightly, then you move forward. The door ahead is already open this time. You step inside without needing to knock. The room is brighter now. Not fully lit, but enough that the details stand out more clearly. The bed is no longer occupied. The space feels active, though still contained. You place the tray where it belongs, carefully, quietly. Your movements are precise but not slow. You have learned the balance between care and efficiency, between attention and invisibility. A voice acknowledges you again. Brief. You respond in kind, then step back. There is no invitation to stay. There never is. You turn and leave the room as you entered. Your steps controlled, your presence light. The door closes behind you. And just like that, you are already moving toward the next task, the next call, the next small action that will carry you deeper into a morning that does not pause, does not wait, but continues to unfold around you with quiet, steady certainty. You return down the stairs once more, the movement now so familiar that your body completes it almost without thought. Each step is placed with quiet certainty, your balance adjusting automatically, your grip on the rail light but steady. The house has fully entered its morning rhythm and you are already moving within it, as though you have always belonged to it. The corridor receives you again with its cool, even air, but something has changed. It is not the temperature, it is the presence. Doors are open now that were closed before. Soft light spills from within rooms, shaping the hallway in a different way. You pass one doorway and catch a glimpse of movement inside, fabric shifting. Someone crossing from one side of the room to the other. You lower your gaze slightly as you pass, not in fear, but in practice. A well-understood expectation within households of this time is that servants should remain attentive without drawing unnecessary attention to themselves, a balance that requires constant awareness rather than simple obedience. You feel that expectation settle over you again as you move, shaping not only your actions but the way you carry your body. Your steps grow quieter. You do not slow, but you soften. Your presence becomes something that moves through the space rather than into it. You pass another doorway. This time a voice emerges, not directed at you, but close enough that you feel its presence. A tone of mild dissatisfaction perhaps, or simply impatience. You do not pause to interpret it, you continue. There is safety in movement, in purpose, in not lingering where you are not required. You reach the main corridor that leads back toward the kitchen. Along the way you pass another servant. They carry a folded cloth, their movements quick but controlled. For a brief moment your paths align. A glance is exchanged, not a greeting, not quite. Something quieter than that. Recognition, shared understanding. Then you pass one another, each continuing in your own direction. A small, somewhat unusual detail noted in some servant narratives is that much of their communication occurred without words, through timing movement and subtle signals that allowed the household to function smoothly without constant speech. You recognize that now, in the way you and the other servant adjusted your steps to avoid collision without needing to speak. You continue. The kitchen draws closer. The warmth that begins to reach you before you enter a gentle shift in the air that signals your return. It feels familiar now, less like a contrast and more like a continuation. You step inside. The room is busier than before. Not chaotic, but full. More movement, more sound, more tasks unfolding at once. The earlier preparation has given way to active service. Items are being moved in and out trays, assembled utensils cleaned and returned to their places. You take in the scene quickly, not stopping, just observing enough to understand where you are needed. You move toward a work surface. A cloth waits there, already damp, already used. You pick it up and begin to wipe your hands, moving in steady, even strokes. The surface is not visibly dirty, but that is not the point. Cleanliness here is maintained through repetition, through constant attention rather than occasional effort. An established fact in accounts of domestic labour is that much of a servant's work involved maintaining an appearance of order that had to be continuously renewed rather than achieved once and left alone. You feel that cycle now in the way your hands move, knowing that this surface will need the same care again before long. The cloth moves across the wood, back and forth, even pressure, no wasted motion. You wring it out the water falling into a basin below, then return to the task. Your breathing settles into a quiet rhythm. In, out, matching the movement of your hands. There is a moment, brief but noticeable, where everything aligns. The motion, the breath, the sound of the room around you. It creates a kind of calm that exists within the activity rather than outside it. A curious observation from some historical reflections suggests that repetitive tasks could sometimes produce a quiet, almost meditative state for those performing them, not because the work was easy, but because its rhythm allowed the mind to rest in the present moment. You sense that here in the steady movement of your hands. It does not last long. Another call, closer this time. Directed. You set the cloth aside immediately. Your attention shifts without hesitation, your body already turning toward the source of the voice before your mind fully forms the response. You move through the kitchen, past the hearth, around another servant who steps aside just enough to let you pass without breaking their own task. You reach the doorway where the call originated. A request is given, clear, specific. You nod once, the motion small, then turn back. The task is simple, but it must be done quickly. You gather what is needed: a cup, a cloth, a small item from the shelf. Each movement precise, no fumbling, no delay. Some scholars have considered whether this constant responsiveness shaped a servant's sense of self over time, training them to react almost instantly to external demands. You feel that shaping now not as something imposed, but as something that has become part of how you move. You complete the task, return, place, adjust, step back. It is done. You do not wait to see if it is approved. You move on. Because there is always something else. Always another surface, another request, another small detail that must be attended to before it becomes noticeable. You pick up the cloth again, return to the surface, continue. Your presence in the room becomes something subtle, something that blends into the movement around you. You're seen when needed, unnoticed when not. It is not invisibility, but it is close. And in a house like this, that closeness is what allows everything to function as it should. You remain within that balance as the morning continues, your hands moving, your awareness steady, your place in the rhythm of the household becoming clearer with each passing moment. The next task carries you beyond the walls again. It begins with a simple instruction passed quickly, almost casually. Bread is needed, fresh. Not what remains from yesterday, not what has already been cut and served, but something newly brought in from the street. You understand at once. This means leaving the house. Your hands move to gather what you need. A small basket, a cloth to line it, coins counted and placed carefully into your palm before being tucked away securely. Each item has its place. Each movement is practiced. You pause briefly at the doorway to the yard, not out to turn, but to adjust. The air outside will be different. Colder, perhaps sharper, carrying with it the full presence of the city. You feel the transition before it happens, the way your body prepares itself without needing instruction. Then you step out. The yard greets you with its uneven ground and familiar dampness. But beyond it, the street waits. You pass through the gate and into London itself. The difference is immediate. The air is thicker, here filled with movement, with sound, with scent. It is not overwhelming, but it is full. You take it in without stopping your steps, continuing forward as your awareness expands to include everything around you. A carriage rolls past at a distance, its wheels grinding softly against the stones. A voice calls out not to you, but to someone unseen. Footsteps cross your path, quick, purposeful, each person moving within their own pattern. A well-documented reality of London in the early 1700s is that its streets were crowded, noisy, and often unsanitary, with people, animals, and trade all sharing the same space. You experience that now in the way the ground beneath your feet shifts from stone to mud and back again, in the way you must watch where you step without appearing to do so. You move along the edge of the street, not in the center. That space is not for you. Your basket rests lightly against your arm, though you remain aware of it, of the coins within, of the responsibility they represent. Losing them is not an option, not even something to consider. The smell of the city changes as you walk. At one moment it is sharp, almost sour, something left too long in the open. Then it shifts to something warmer, more inviting as you pass near a place where food is being prepared. The scents layer over one another, never fully replacing what came before. A small curious detail mentioned in some accounts is that people in cities like London often developed a kind of selective awareness of smell, noticing what mattered and ignoring what did not. You feel that now as your attention moves past certain odours, without lingering, focusing instead on where you're going. The bakery comes into view. You recognise it not only by sight but by scent. The warmth of fresh bread reaches you before you arrive, softer than the rest of the city, carrying a sense of steadiness that stands apart from the movement around it. You step closer. The doorway is open. Inside, the air is warmer, the light slightly brighter. The baker moves behind the counter, hands dusted with flour, movements confident and continuous. You wait. Not long, but long enough to be seen in the proper order. A widely acknowledged aspect of daily commerce in this period is that even small transactions followed an unspoken structure of turn and recognition, especially in busy urban spaces. You understand that structure without needing to think about it. When your turn comes, you step forward. The exchange is brief. You state what is needed. The baker responds. The bread is brought forward, still warm, its surface firm, its scent unmistakable. You place the coins down carefully, not too quickly, not too slowly. The baker takes them, counts them with a glance that is both quick and exact, then nods. The bread is yours. You place it into this basket, adjusting the cloth around it so that it rests securely. The warmth seeps through the fabric, reaching your hands, your arms, a small comfort that feels almost unexpected. Then you turn and step back into the street. The noise returns. The movement, the constant presence of others moving in directions that rarely align with your own. You begin the walk back. This time the basket is heavier, though not by much. The difference lies not in weight but in care. The bread must remain intact. It must arrive as it was given, without damage, without delay. You adjust your pace accordingly. Steady! Measured. You navigate around others, your path shifting slightly to avoid contact to maintain the space you need, without drawing attention to it. Some researchers have reflected on how servants developed a heightened awareness of their surroundings when moving through public spaces, balancing speed with caution in order to fulfill their duties efficiently. You feel that awareness now in the way your eyes move, not fixing on any one thing, but taking in everything just enough. The house comes back into view. Its exterior is quieter than the street, its presence more contained. You pass through this gate and into the yard, once more the sounds of the city softening behind you. The transition is noticeable. The air feels different again, less crowded, less demanding, but still not yours. You step inside. The kitchen receives you with its familiar warmth and the movement. You place the basket down, uncovering the bread just enough to check that it has remained as it should. It has. You pass it on. The task is complete, but only that one. You turn away, your hands already reaching for the next thing, your body already moving your place within the rhythm of the house, continuing without pause as the morning carries you further into its steady, unbroken flow. You set the empty basket aside, your fingers releasing it without lingering, and for a brief moment your hands feel lighter than they have since the morning began. The sensation is small, almost unnoticed, and it fades quickly as the next task rises to meet you. The kitchen has shifted again, not in structure but in tone. There is a kind of fullness now, a layering of effort that has built steadily since before dawn. The earlier quiet focus has given way to something more social, though still contained. More voices, more glances exchanged, more movement that overlaps and adjusts in subtle ways. You step back into that current, not as an observer, but as part of it. Another servant passes you a cloth without speaking. You take it automatically, your hand meeting theirs for only a second before both of you continue on your separate paths. There is no pause for acknowledgement. None is needed. You move toward the long table near the center of the room. It has already been used, wiped, and used again. You can see faint traces of flour along its edge, a slight dampness where something was recently cleaned. You begin to wipe it once more, your hands moving in steady practice motions. A consistent finding in records of domestic service is that servants rarely worked in isolation, instead operating within a shared environment where coordination and awareness of others were essential. You feel that coordination now in the way you adjust your position slightly to avoid another servant moving behind you in the way your timing aligns with theirs without conscious effort. A voice rises nearby, not directed at you. Two others exchange a few words, brief and quiet, their tones carrying a hint of familiarity. There is something almost light in it, not laughter exactly, but close. You do not turn to look, but you hear it, and for a moment it softens the space around you. A small, somewhat unexpected detail found in certain accounts is that kitchens could become places of quiet companionship among servants where brief exchanges of humour or shared experience helped ease the weight of the work. You sense that here in the tone of those voices, even if you do not join them. You continue wiping. The cloth moves across the surface, smoothing, clearing, restoring a sense of order that will not last long but must be maintained all the same. Your attention shifts slightly as another task emerges. A basin needs emptying. You set the cloth aside and move toward it, lifting it carefully. The water inside is clouded now, carrying the residue of earlier work. You carry it toward the corner where it can be disposed of properly, your steps steady despite the shifting weight. You tip it slowly. The water pours out in a controlled stream, the sound soft but continuous. You watch it for a moment, then set the basin down again, already turning back toward the main space. The room feels different now, not louder, but more connected. Movements intersect more frequently. Tasks overlap more closely. You find yourself adjusting more often, stepping slightly to the side, pausing for a fraction of a second to allow someone else to pass, then continuing without breaking your rhythm. Your awareness extends outward. You're no longer focused only on what is directly in front of you. You begin to sense the flow of the room as a whole, anticipating where you need to be before the need fully forms. Some scholars have explored how this kind of shared labour environment shaped a servant's sense of timing and spatial awareness, suggesting that over time individuals became finely attuned to the movements of those around them. You feel that attunement now not as a theory but as something active in your body. You reach for another task. A stack of utensils waits near the hearth, recently used and in need of cleaning. You gather them carefully, their surfaces still carrying warmth from the fire. You carry them to the washing area, setting them down with a soft, controlled motion. The water is cooler here. You dip the cloth into it, then begin to clean each piece, your hands moving with quiet precision. The metal reflects the light, faintly shifting as you turn it, checking for any trace that remains. You work steadily, not rushing, but not slowing. The rhythm returns, a different one this time, more contained, more focused. For a brief moment, the noise of the room recedes slightly, not because it has changed, but because your attention has narrowed. You become aware of the small details, the way the cloth moves across the surface, the way the water drips from the edge of the utensil, the faint sound of your own breathing. Then just as quietly, the wider world returns. A call, a movement, a shift in the air. You set the cleaned items aside and stand. Your body feels different now, not lighter, but more settled into the work. The earlier adjustments have given way to a steady engagement. Your movements are smoother. Your response is quicker, your place within the room more certain. You glance briefly toward the others, not directly, but enough to take in their positions, their tasks, the way they move within the same space you occupy. There is a pattern here, not rigid, but consistent, and you are part of it. You reach for another cloth, another surface, another small act that contributes to the larger whole. The kitchen continues around you, its rhythm steady, its demands constant, its small moments of connection and separation weaving together into something that feels almost seamless. You remain within it, present, steady, your movements quiet, your awareness extended just enough to keep everything flowing as it should. And in that flow, you begin to understand something, not in words, but in the way your body moves. This is not just work, it is a system, and you are learning how to move within it without disrupting its shape. The pace shifts again without warning. Not faster, not slower, just different. A bundle of linen is brought in and set down with a quiet weight that seems to settle into the room itself. You notice it immediately, even before anyone speaks. Cloth has its own presence. It waits patient but never truly at rest. You step toward it. Your hands already understand what will be required. A commonly noted feature of household life in this period is that linen demanded constant attention, as washing was labour-intensive and fabrics were valuable enough that nothing could be wasted or neglected. You feel that value in the way you approach the bundle, not as something ordinary, but as something that must be handled with care. You unfold the first piece. The fabric opens slowly, revealing its full length in stages. It is heavier than it appears, holding the weight of water, of use, of time. You run your fingers lightly along its surface, checking for stains, for damage, for anything that might require more than simple washing. There is always something, a mark, a faint discoloration, a place where the fibres have begun to thin. You note it without pausing, your mind already adjusting the task ahead. The basin is ready. You carry the linen toward it, lowering it carefully into the water. The fabric resists at first, floating slightly, then begins to sink as it absorbs the liquid, darkening in tone, becoming heavier still. You press it down, slowly, firmly. The water rises around your hands, cool against your skin, slipping between your fingers as you work. You feel the texture change beneath your touch, the cloth softening, yielding, preparing to release what it has carried. A small but interesting observation from certain household records is that laundering was often one of the most physically demanding tasks for servants, requiring strength, patience, and repeated motion over long periods. You sense that demand immediately as you begin to work the fabric, your arms engaging your shoulders, adjusting to the effort. You lift the linen slightly, then press again. The motion repeats. Lift, press, turn. Each action deliberate, each movement necessary. There is no shortcut here. No way to rush without consequence. The water clouds slowly as the fabric releases its residue, the clarity fading into something more opaque. You notice the change not with concern, but with recognition. This is part of the process. You continue. Your breathing settles into the rhythm of the work, matching the rise and fall of your arms, the steady pressure of your hands. The sounds of the kitchen remain around you, but they feel more distant now, softened by your focus. Another piece of linen waits, then another. You move through them one by one, each requiring the same care, the same attention, the same effort. The repetition builds not in a way that dulls your awareness, but in a way that deepens it. A curious detail sometimes mentioned in personal accounts is that servants often developed strong hands and forearms from tasks like washing and wringing their strength, shaped not by deliberate exercise, but by necessity. You feel that shaping in your own body as the work continues, your grip firm, your movements steady. You lift the fabric from the basin. Water streams from it in thin lines, falling back into the basin with a soft, continuous sound. You gather the cloth in your hands and begin to twist. The resistance is immediate. The fabric holds the water tightly and you must apply pressure to release it. Your hands tighten your arms. Engage your shoulders steady as you turn the cloth, forcing the water out. It yields slowly, then more quickly. The stream strengthens, then fades as the fabric gives up what it holds. You release it. The linen hangs heavier than before, but drier. You set it aside. Not only a piece follows. The cycle continues. A discussion that appears in some historical studies considers whether servants found any sense of rhythm or even satisfaction in repetitive labour, or whether the constant demand simply wore down both body and mind. You feel both possibilities in the work, the steadiness of the motion alongside the weight of its repetition. Time passes, not marked, not measured, but felt in the growing warmth of your body, the slight fatigue in your arms, the way your hands begin to ache in small, quiet ways. You do not stop. There is more to be done. Once the washing is complete, the next stage begins. You carry the linen toward the area where it can be hung. The space is not large, but it is arranged to allow the fabric to stretch to dry as evenly as possible. You lift each piece, shaking it out gently before placing it over the line. The motion is different now, lighter, but still precise. Each fold must be avoided. Each edge must be aligned so that the cloth dries properly without creasing in ways that will later require correction. You step back briefly, looking not for beauty, but for order. The linen hangs in quiet rows, each piece separate but part of a whole. You notice how the light touches it, how the slight movement of air causes the edges to shift almost imperceptibly. Then you turn back. There is still more. Mending waits. A small tear, a weakened seam. You sit for a moment, taking up the needle and thread. The task requires a different kind of attention. Slower, more focused. Your fingers move carefully, guiding the thread through the fabric, pulling it tight, then repeating the motion. In, out, each stitch small, each one necessary. The world narrows again, not because it has grown quieter, but because your attention has drawn inward, focusing on the point where needle meets cloth. You feel the shift in your body, from strength to precision, from broad movement to fine control. And within that shift, the work continues steady, unbroken, carrying you further into the day with the same quiet persistence that has guided her. Very moment since you first opened your eyes. The needle leaves your hand as quietly as it entered it. You set it aside, the thread still trailing slightly before you guide it into a place, ensuring it does not tangle. The linen rests where it should, the small tear no longer visible unless someone looks very closely. That is the goal. Not perfection, but the absence of fault. You rise again. Your legs feel the shift more than your hands did. A slight stiffness returns, though different from the morning. This one comes from repetition, from holding positions longer than the body prefers. You straighten slowly, letting your weight settle evenly before you move. The kitchen calls you back. Not with a voice this time, but with a sound you recognize immediately. A bell. Clear, short, distinct. It carries through the house with a kind of quiet authority that does not need explanation. You pause for the smallest fraction of a moment, listening, identifying which room, which direction, what kind of request. Then you move. An established detail of domestic service in large households is that bell systems were often used to summon servants from different rooms, each bell corresponding to a specific location within the house. You've learned to interpret these signals quickly, to respond without hesitation, to move before the sound has fully faded. You step into the corridor. The air feels cooler again, though not as sharply as before. The house has begun to hold some warmth, now carried from room to room, spreading slowly but steadily. The bell rings again, softer this time, more distant. You adjust your direction accordingly, your path shifting slightly as you follow the sound. Your steps remain controlled. There is no need to hurry in a way that draws attention, but there is no space for delay either. You pass another servant moving in the opposite direction. They carry a tray, their focus forward, their pace steady. You step slightly to the side, allowing them to pass without breaking either of your movements. A small understated detail sometimes noted in household accounts is that servants developed an almost instinctive awareness of one another's paths, allowing them to navigate narrow spaces efficiently without constant verbal coordination. You experience that now, in the way your movement adjusts without the thought. The corridor narrows slightly as you approach the source of the bell. The door ahead is closed. You stop just before it. A brief pause, not hesitation, preparation. You adjust your posture, your shoulders, settling your hands still in at your sides. Then you raise your hand and knock. Soft, measured. A voice responds from within. You open the door. The room is brighter than the corridor, the light filtering in through a window that has now begun to carry the full presence of morning. It falls across the floor in a pale even wash, touching the edges of furniture, the folds of fabric, the surfaces that you must now attend to. You step inside. The request is given quickly. A basin, fresh water, towels. You nod once. There is no need for words. You turn and leave, closing the door behind you with the same controlled motion as before. The task unfolds in your mind as you move. What is needed, where it is, how it must be arranged. You return to the kitchen. Your path direct your steps steady. The room is still active, though the earlier intensity has shifted into something more sustained. You gather the items required, your hands moving without pause. The basin is filled. The water is tested briefly, your fingers dipping in just enough to gauge its temperature. Not too cold, not too warm, suitable. You lift it. The weight is familiar. You add the towels folded neatly placed over your arm so they remain clean, uncreased. Then you turn back toward the corridor. Some scholars have examined how repeated tasks like these shaped a servant's ability to manage multiple elements at once, balancing weight, cleanliness, and timing in a single movement. You feel that balance now in the way you carry the basin, your grip steady, your arm adjusting to keep the towels in place. You reach the room again. This time you enter without knocking. The expectation has already been set. You move toward the place indicated, setting the basin down carefully, ensuring that no water spills, that the surface beneath remains untouched. The towels follow, placed within reach, aligned. Ready! You step back. Your presence fades again into the background of the room, your task complete. A brief acknowledgement, then nothing. You turn and leave. The corridor greets you once more, its light now stronger, its air carrying more of the day within it. The house feels fuller now, more active, more aware. You pause for a moment, not because you are unsure, but because there is a space, a small gap between tasks. You stand there, your breath steady, your body still, your awareness expanding slightly beyond the immediate. It does not last. Another sound, another movement, another need. You step forward again, your place within the rhythm of the house continuing without interruption, your actions flowing into the next as naturally as the breath that carries you through them. You do not remain in that small pause for long. The house does not allow it. Another task rises, not sharply, not urgently, but with a quiet certainty that draws you forward. A set of items must be carried from one room to another. Not heavy, not complicated, but requiring care. You turn toward the side chamber where they wait. The door is partially open. The light inside, softer than the corridor, filtered through heavy fabric that dims the morning brightness. You step in and feel at once the difference in the space. The air is warmer here, held in by thick curtains and the remains of a fire that has already done its work. On the table, the objects are arranged. Silver! Polished. Still, you approach them carefully. An established reality in households of this kind is that servants were often responsible for maintaining and handling valuable items such as silverware, which required both attention and trust. You feel that responsibility in the way your hands hover for a moment before touching anything, as if acknowledging the weight of what lies before you. You reach for the first piece. The metal is cool against your fingers, though not as cold as it would have been earlier. It carries a faint warmth from the room, from the air that has settled around it. You lift it slightly, turning it just enough to check its surface. No marks, no smudges. You set it down again, aligning it with the others. Each piece must be placed correctly, not just in position, but in relation to everything else. There is a quiet order here, one that does not need to be explained but must be followed precisely. A small and rather curious note found in some domestic accounts suggests that servants sometimes developed an almost instinctive sense of symmetry when arranging objects, ensuring balance without needing formal instruction. You notice that instinct now as your hands adjust the spacing between items, making small corrections that feel necessary, even if no one else would immediately see them. You gather the set, not all at once, but in careful portion. The tray you use is steady, its surface firm, its edges slightly raised to prevent movement. You place the items upon it with attention, ensuring that nothing touches in a way that might create sound or damage. The faintest contact, then stillness. You lift the tray. The weight is not great, but it demands steadiness. The kind of steadiness that comes not from strength alone, but from control. You turn toward the door. Your steps are slower now, not because you're tired, but because the task requires it. The corridor outside feels brighter than before, the light now more fully present, touching the walls, the floor, the edges of the space in a way that makes everything clearer. You move through it carefully. Your eyes remain forward, but your awareness extends outward, noting any movement that might cross your path, any shift that might require adjustment. You pass a window. This time the light beyond it is unmistakable. Morning has arrived, not gently, but fully. The city beyond is awake, though you only glimpse it in passing, a fragment of motion, a suggestion of life that continues beyond the walls you inhabit. You continue. The tray remains steady. Your hands hold it with quiet precision, your fingers adjusting minutely to maintain balance as you walk. Some scholars have reflected on how servants became skilled in carrying delicate or valuable items through busy spaces, suggesting that this ability was learned through repetition and necessity rather than formal training. You feel that learning in your body now, in the way your movements adapt automatically to the slight shifts in weight and motion. You reach the destination. The door is open. You enter without hesitation. The room is larger than the one you left, its furnishings more elaborate, its light more pronounced. The air carries a different quality here, less touched by work, more shaped by comfort. You move toward the table. The placement must be exact. You lower the tray, slowly guiding it into position, ensuring that it settles without sound. Then one by one, you lift each piece and place it where it belongs. Each movement deliberate, each adjustment small but necessary. You step back slightly, observing the arrangement, not for admiration, but for accuracy. Everything aligns. You remain still for a moment, your eyes moving across the surface, checking for anything that might have been missed. Nothing stands out. You've done it correctly. A voice speaks from somewhere within the room. You do not turn immediately. You wait for the direction to become clear. When it does, you respond. A slight movement, a small adjustment to one of the items. Then stillness again. You step back. Your presence recedes. The work remains. You turn and leave. The corridor feels different now. Not just brighter, but more active. Footsteps pass more frequently. Voices carry more clearly. The house has fully entered its day. You move through it with the same quiet awareness, your body adjusting to the increased movement, your path shifting slightly to accommodate others without breaking your own rhythm. As you return toward the kitchen, your hands feel empty again. Light, free. For a moment, you notice the absence of weight, the contrast to what you carried before. Then the next task begins to form. It does not arrive with a bell or a voice. It simply appears, as it always does, waiting for you to step into it. And you do, without pause, without question, continuing forward into the steady, unbroken flow of the day. You barely have time to register the lightness in your hands before something else fills it. A cup is passed to you, then another, not placed carefully, not arranged, but given quickly, as though the act of handing them over is already part of a larger chain you cannot see in full. You take them without hesitation. The surface is warm, not from fire, but from recent use. You feel it through your fingers, a faint lingering heat that suggests someone has only just finished with it. You adjust your grip slightly, ensuring that nothing slips, nothing tilts. The directions are clear. These must be cleaned. You move back toward the washing area, your steps steady, your attention narrowing again as the task takes shape. The basin is already in use, the water clouded from earlier work but still serviceable. You set the cups down carefully beside it. There is no pause. You begin. Water first. You dip the cloth, lift it, then bring it to the surface of the cup. The motion is smooth, controlled, your fingers guiding the fabric along the curve of the porcelain. A clear and well-supported understanding of servant life is that even the smallest household items required careful maintenance, as breakage or visible dirt could reflect poorly on the entire staff. You feel that pressure in the way you handle each piece. Your movements precise, your attention fixed. You turn the cup slowly, inside, outside, the rim. Each area receives the same care. You do not rush, but you do not linger either. A small lesser-known detail appears in some records, noting that servants could be held responsible for damage to household goods, with costs sometimes deducted from their wages. You carry that awareness in the back of your mind, not as fear, but as a constant reminder of the importance of control. You rinse the cup. The water runs over it, clearing away the last traces of use. You lift it slightly, tilting it so the excess falls away, then set it aside. Another follows, then another. The repetition builds again, though different from the washing of linen. Lighter, quicker, but no less exact. Your hands move with increasing efficiency. The rhythm returns, not loud, not obvious, but present. A faint alignment between movement and breath, between action and awareness. A quiet, almost unnoticed observation found in certain accounts suggests that repetitive domestic tasks could blur together over time, creating a sense of continuous motion rather than distinct actions. You feel that now, as the cups pass through your hands one after another, each one similar, each one slightly different. A sound interrupts, not sharp, but enough. A voice from across the room, your name perhaps, or simply a call that you recognize as meant for you. You set the cup down immediately, not carelessly, but without delay. You turn. The instruction comes quickly. Something has been misplaced or broken. The exact detail does not matter as much as the tone. There is a shift in the air, subtle but real. You move toward the source. Your steps remain controlled, but there is a slight tightening in your chest. A small awareness that something has gone wrong even if it's not directly your doing. You arrive. A plate rests on the table, or what remains of it. A clean break but unmistakable. The pieces lie where they have fallen, the edges sharp, the pattern interrupted. No one speaks for a moment. Then the question. Not loud, but pointed. You feel it more than hear it. Responsibility hangs in the space not yet assigned, but waiting. A familiar reality in households like this is that blame could settle quickly, often falling on those closest to the task regardless of intention. You stand still, your hands at your sides, your posture steady, your gaze lowered, just enough to show attention without retreat. You answer. Brief, clear. Your voice remains, even though your awareness sharpens further, taking in every detail, every movement, every shift in tone. The response comes. Measured, not harsh, but not gentle either. The pieces must be cleared. Carefully, you move forward. Your hands reach for the fragments, your fingers adjusting to avoid the sharper edges. The surface beneath them is smooth, the contrast between intact and broken clear beneath your touch. You gather them slowly. Each piece lifted, placed together, removed from the table. There is no rushing this. The act itself becomes a kind of quiet correction, restoring order, even if only partially. Some scholars have reflected on how moments like these shaped a servant's understanding of accountability, suggesting that responsibility often extended beyond personal action to include the broader functioning of the household. You feel that now not as an idea, but as a presence in the way you move. You clear the space, wipe it, ensure that nothing remains. The table returns to its previous state as though the break never occurred. But you remember it. Your hands return to your sides. The tension eases slightly. Not gone, but less immediate. You step back, awaiting further instruction. None comes. The moment passes. Quietly, the work resumes. You turn and return to the washing area, your hands finding the next cup, the next task, the next small action that continues the flow of the day. The rhythm re-establishes itself. Steady, unbroken, and you move within it once more, carrying forward the memory of what has just happened, even as your hands return to the familiar motions that keep everything in its place. You return to the washing without comment, your hands finding the cloth again, your fingers settling into the familiar motion as though nothing has shifted. But something has. Not in the room. In you. A slight tightening remains in your shoulders, a quiet awareness that lingers beneath the surface of your movements. The broken plate is gone, the table restored, the moment past. Yet it stays with you in a way that is difficult to name. You dip the cloth into the basin again. The water is cooler now, and holds a more cooler now. Not unpleasant, just changed. You bring it to the next cup, your hand steady, your grip controlled. The motion resumes. Wipe, turn, rinse, set aside. The rhythm returns, but it feels different. More deliberate, more attentive. A widely accepted observation in studies of domestic service is that physical labour often left lasting effects on the body-shaping posture strength and endurance over time. You feel that shaping now, not only in your muscles, but in the way you hold yourself, the way your movements become more measured after a moment of correction. You finish the last of the cups and set them aside. Your hands rest briefly at the edge of the basin. The skin is slightly wrinkled from the water, the fingers faintly reddened. You flex them once, then again, testing the sensation, noting the small stiffness that has begun to settle in. It is not pain, not exactly, more a quiet accumulation. You lift your hands and let them dry in the air for a moment before reaching for the next task. Cloth must be wrung again. You take it up, twisting it between your hands, the water slipping from it in thin streams. The effort engages your arms, your shoulders, your back, each part of you contributing to the motion. You feel it more clearly now. The work, not as a series of actions, but as something that lives in your body, A less frequently emphasized detail in historical descriptions is the toll that repetitive labor took on servants, not always in dramatic ways, but through small, continuous strain that built over time. You sense that strain now in the way your arms feel heavier than before, in the way your shoulders resist slightly as you lift them. You release the cloth. It falls back into the basin with a soft sound. You pause. Not long, just enough to shift your weight from one foot to the other to allow your muscles to adjust. Then you move again. The floor beneath you feels firmer than it did earlier, or perhaps your awareness of it has sharpened. Each step carries a faint echo of the effort you have already given, a reminder that the day is still unfolding, that there is more to come. You move toward the hearth. The fire has settled into a steady burn now, its earlier intensity softened into something more even. The warmth it gives is constant, though it does not reach every corner of the room. You extend your hands toward it for a brief moment, not to rest, but to feel. The heat touches your skin, easing some of the tension, loosening the stiffness in your fingers. You hold them there for a breath, then withdraw. A small, somewhat surprising detail found in certain accounts is that servants often took advantage of brief moments like this, using the warmth of a fire or the stillness between tasks to ease their bodies in quiet ways. You recognize that instinct now, though you do not dwell on it. You turn back. There is always more. Another surface, another item, another movement that continues the pattern. Your body adjusts again. The earlier tightness softens slightly, replaced by a steadier engagement. You move with more awareness now. Your actions more deliberate, your attention more focused on the small details that shape the work. A voice calls from across the room, not urgent, but clear. You respond immediately to your steps carrying you toward the source, your hands ready to take on whatever is needed next. The instruction is simple. Carry, place, return. You do so without hesitation. Each action completed with the same care as before, though now your movements carry the weight of everything that has come before them. Some scholars have considered how the accumulation of daily labour shaped a servant's sense of endurance, suggesting that resilience was built not through singular hardship, but through the steady continuation of effort over time. You feel that resilience forming in you now, in the way you continue without a pause, without complaint, without the expectation of relief. You return to the centre of the room. Your hands are empty again. For a moment you let them rest at your sides, not because there is nothing to do, but because the next task has not yet been placed into them. You take a slow breath. The air feels warmer now, though still carrying the layered sense of the kitchen. Smoke, cloth, water, food, all of it together. You stand within it, present, aware. Your body holds the memory of every movement you have made so far, each one leaving a trace that does not disappear, only shifts, making room for the next. Then the moment passes, another task arrives, and you step forward once more, your place within the rhythm of the house continuing, shaped not only by what you do but by how your body has begun to carry the day itself. You step away from the hearth and back into motion, the warmth fading quickly from your hands as the work gathers around you again. The kitchen remains steady in its rhythm, but something in the atmosphere shifts as the morning moves further along. It's not visible at first, not in the tasks, but in the sound. From somewhere beyond the walls, faint but distinct, a bell begins to ring. Not the sharp call of a servant bell, something slow. Slower, measured, distant. You pause for the briefest moment, just long enough to recognize it. Church bells, a firmly established element of daily life in London. During this period is the presence of church bells marking time, signalling not only hours but also moments of prayer and communal awareness. You feel their presence now, not as a command but as a backdrop to everything you are doing. The sound moves through the air differently than the noises of the kitchen. It does not press, it settles. It spreads outward, reaching even into this space where fire and work dominate. You continue your task, but your awareness shifts slightly, expanding beyond the room. For a moment you imagine the city beyond the walls, people pausing, or not. Some listening, others continuing without interruption. The bells do not require attention, they simply exist. A quieter, less obvious detail found in some accounts suggests that servants often experienced religious observance differently from those they served with less time for formal practice and more reliance on brief, private moments of reflection. You feel that difference now in the way the sound reaches you, but does not alter your movement. You pick up a cloth, begin again, wipe, turn, adjust. The rhythm holds, but beneath it something else lingers, a thought, not fully formed, more a feeling of time passing beyond your control, of something larger moving around you. You set the cloth aside and reach for another task. A small item must be carried, then another. Each movement continues the pattern, but the bells remain their sound, rising and falling, echoing through the spaces of the house. A curious belief recorded in some parts of England during this era is that bells could ward off misfortune or mark moments when unseen forces were most active. Whether or not that is true, you sense the weight people place on them and the way they listen, the way they interpret. You move through the kitchen again. The others continue their work, their movement steady, their attention focused. Some seem not to notice the bells at all. Others tilt their heads slightly just for a moment, then return to their tasks. You pass by the doorway and catch a glimpse of the light outside. It has grown stronger. The morning is fully present now. You step into the corridor briefly, carrying a small item to another room. The air feels different here, less shaped by fire, more open. The sound of the bells is clearer. You pause for a fraction of a second, not enough to be noticed, just enough to listen. Then you continue. Some historians continue to examine how deeply religious belief influenced daily routines across different social classes, suggesting that while faith was widespread, its expression varied greatly depending on one's position. You feel that variation now in the way your day continues uninterrupted, even as the sound of devotion fills the air. You reach the room, complete the task, return. The kitchen receives you again, its warmth and movement unchanged. The bells begin to fade, not abruptly, but gradually, their sound softening, blending back into the wider noise of the city. You notice their absence almost as clearly as their presence. The space feels different without them, quieter in a way that is not truly quiet. You resume your work fully. The cloth moves across the surface again, your hand steady. Your movements controlled. The earlier feeling shifts, not gone, but settled. You're back within the rhythm. A moment passes, then another. The tasks continue. Carry, place, adjust, respond. Each action following the last, forming a continuous thread that stretches through the morning. Your body moves with it. Your awareness remains steady. The house around you functions as it should, each part contributing to the whole, each movement supporting the man. And you remain within it. Not separate, not central, but essential in a way that is only visible when something goes wrong. You continue. The work does not end. It only changes, and you change with it moment by moment, movement by movement, carried forward by the steady flow of a day that offers no pause, only continuation. The bells fade, and in their place the ordinary sounds of the house return to the front of your awareness. Footsteps, voices, the soft movement of objects carried from one place to another. Nothing has changed, and yet the absence of that distant rhythm makes everything feel closer again. You move through the kitchen once more, your hands occupied, your attention steady when something unexpected happens. There is a pause, not in the house, but in your work. A brief gap appears not filled immediately by another task. No voice calls, no item is placed into your hands. The flow for just a moment loosens its hold. You feel it at once. The space. You do not leave the room. You do not sit, but your movements slow slightly, your hands coming to rest at your sides as you stand near the edge of the work table. The air feels warmer, here touched by the steady burn of the fire. It settles against your skin, not sharply, but with a quiet consistency that your body recognizes. You take a breath, longer than usual. Not forced, just allowed. A well-supported insight from accounts of servant life is that moments of rest were often brief and irregular, appearing unexpectedly rather than being scheduled. You understand that now, in the way this pause exists, not granted, not announced, but simply present. You glance around the room, not directly, but enough to take in the others. Some continue their tasks without interruption. Others move between duties, their hands already occupied, their focus forward. No one seems to mark this moment as anything unusual, and yet for you it is noticeable. You shift your weight slightly, allowing your body to ease in small ways. Your shoulders lower just a fraction. Your hands relax, the tension in your fingers softening. A small, quietly observed detail in some servant narratives suggests that brief pauses like this were sometimes used for quick exchanges, shared looks, or silent acknowledgement between workers. You sense that possibility now as another servant passes near you. Their movement slows just enough. A glance, a faint curve at the corner of the mouth. Then they continue. It is not a conversation, not even a full expression, but it is something. You feel it linger for a moment after they pass. A sense that you are not entirely alone within this work, even if each of you moves along your own path. You turn your attention inward again. Your hands, your arms, your back. You notice the way they feel, not as separate parts, but as a whole. There is a weight there, a quiet heaviness that has built over the course of the morning. It is not overwhelming, not enough to stop you, but present in a way that you cannot ignore if you choose to notice it. You roll your shoulders slightly. The movement is small, almost invisible, but it brings a subtle release. The tension shifts, easing just enough to make a difference. You take another breath. The air carries the familiar sense of the kitchen. Smoke, cloth, food, water, all layered together, forming a kind of background. You no longer question. Some historians continue to explore whether servants developed personal strategies for coping with the demands of their work, using small unnoticed actions to maintain their strength and focus. You feel that strategy now in the way you take this moment, in the way you allow yourself this brief adjustment. The pause does not last. It cannot. A sound emerges. Not a bell, not a call. Just the subtle shift of movement that signals the next task is already forming. You feel it before you see it. Your body responds. Your hands lift slightly, ready to receive. A cloth is placed into them. Another task begins. You move immediately, the rhythm closing around you again, the brief space dissolving into the steady flow of action. But something remains, not the pause itself. That is gone, but the awareness of it. A small memory of stillness within movement. You carry it with you as you begin again, your hands moving your steps, aligning your place within the system re-established. The kitchen continues, the house continues, the day continues, and you once more move forward within its steady present, carrying both the weight of the work and the faint echo of that quiet moment that belonged, if only briefly, to you. The cloth in your hands draws you back into motion without hesitation. Whatever lingered from that brief pause settles quietly beneath the surface, no longer at the front of your awareness, but not entirely gone either. It moves with you now, as subtle as breath, as constant as the rhythm you have already returned to. The day shifts again, not toward rest, but toward another phase. You feel it in the way the kitchen begins to reorganize itself. Items that were used earlier are cleared. New ones are brought forward. The focus turns toward the next meal, the next set of expectations that must be met before the household above settles into its afternoon. You move with that change. A recognized pattern in households of this time is that work followed the structure of meals, with preparation for the next beginning almost as soon as the previous had been served. You experience that continuity now, the way there is no true separation between one part of the day and the next. You carry a stack of plates from one side of the room to the other. They are clean, but they must be arranged. Your hands adjust their position as you walk, ensuring that the stack remains stable, that nothing shifts out of alignment. The weight is manageable, but your attention remains fixed on it. You set them down, one by one, each placed with care, each aligned with the next. The surface beneath them is smooth, recently wiped, but you check it again with a quick pass of your hand before continuing. A small but telling observation from certain accounts is that servants often repeated tasks even when they had already been completed, ensuring that nothing was left to chance. You feel that repetition in your own actions now, not as doubt but as certainty. Another task follows. Cloth must be shaken out. You take it up, stepping slightly toward the open doorway where the air moves more freely. You lift it, then snap it once, with the fabric catching the air, releasing whatever dust or looseness remains. The motion is quick, Controlled. The cloth settles again. You fold it, edges aligned, corners matched. A curious note found in some writings is that even simple actions like folding cloth could carry an expectation of precision reflecting the overall order of the household. You notice that expectation in the way your fingers adjust the final fold, ensuring that nothing remains uneven. The light has changed again. It no longer feels like morning. It has deepened, become steadier, less tentative. It fills the room more fully now, reaching into corners that were dim before softening the shadows cast by the fire. You notice it as you move, not directly, but in the way it alters the space around you. You carry another item, then another. Each movement continues the pattern, the steady flow of action that has defined your day so far. But beneath it, something else begins to form. A sense of length, of time stretching forward. The morning is behind you now, though you have not stopped, have not rested. The day continues. A topic that continues to be discussed among historians is how servants perceive time within their work, with some suggesting that the lack of clear breaks made the day feel continuous rather than divided. You sense that continuity now, the way the hours blend into one another without clear boundaries. A voice calls from the doorway. You turn immediately. The instruction is given. Prepare for the evening. Not in full, not yet, but begin. You nod once, then move. The shift is subtle, but it is there. Items are brought forward that were not needed earlier. Utensils arranged differently, surfaces cleared in new ways. You adapt. Your hands moving through unfamiliar patterns that quickly become familiar through repetition. Another servant passes near you. This time there is no glance. No pause, only movement. The pace has increased slightly, not rushed, but more focused. You feel it in your steps, in the way your body responds, in the way your attention narrows again to meet the demands of the moment. You carry a tray toward the edge of the room. Set it down. Adjust. Step back. Then forward again. The sequence continues. A faint sound reaches you from beyond the walls. Not bells this time, but the city. More active now, more present. You do not see it, but you feel it, in the way the air seems to carry more movement, more life. The house remains its own world, but it is not separate. It exists within something larger, and you move within both. Your hands find another task. Your body follows. The rhythm continues, unbroken, steady, carrying you forward into the next part of the day where the light has changed, the work has shifted, and yet everything remains exactly as it must be. The afternoon has settled into a steady pulse that seems to move through the house itself. Not loud, not dramatic, but unmistakable. You can feel it in the way the air shifts as others carry trays, open doors, or move across the floor. The rhythm is constant, pulling you forward without pause, without apology. You climb the stairs again. Not hurriedly, not with tension, but with a quiet determination in your hands ready to carry your feet, knowing the narrow steps by memory alone. The corridor feels familiar, shaped by repeated journeys, yet each ascent carries its own weight. The room ahead waits for you. Its door is slightly ajar, the space within illuminated by the late afternoon light spilling through windows. Dust motes drift lazily in the beams, dancing almost imperceptibly. A faint warmth radiates from the fireplace, residual from earlier use. You step inside, careful not to disturb anything more than necessary. A task is waiting. A tray of items must be arranged. Your hands adjust instinctively, shifting one cup, nudging a small dish slightly to the side. The work seems mundane to an outsider, but each motion carries weight, requiring precision and patience. A broadly documented fact about service in 18th century London is that many domestic items, from silverware to delicate porcelain, were maintained by servants who had to handle them daily without fault. The importance of handling these items correctly is palpable in your hands and the careful way you guide each one into place. Another detail that appears occasionally in personal accounts is that servants sometimes developed a kind of tactile memory, knowing by touch when an object is positioned correctly. You notice that now as your fingers hover over the tray, adjusting each piece without needing to look closely. A voice from elsewhere in the house calls, not directly at you, but its presence creates urgency. You do not hesitate. Your body moves in response before your mind has fully processed the instruction. Precision and speed combine in a single motion honed through repetition. You step back for a brief moment to observe the tray. It is orderly, balanced, ready. A subtle satisfaction rises almost unnoticed in accomplishing what appears simple but is actually the result of careful attention. Historians still debate whether servants internalize the significance of such tasks as personal discipline, or whether they simply followed routines out of necessity. You feel the answer lies somewhere between both. Each movement is deliberate, but habit and survival have forged it into second nature. A quirky tidbit from diaries of the period notes that some servants would hum quietly while completing repetitive chores, a small rhythm to accompany labour that might otherwise feel endless. You are aware of the possibility of such small comforts even if you do not allow yourself to indulge them. The next sequence of tasks begins immediately. Cloths to be folded, dishes to be returned, surfaces to be wiped again. You move without thought, letting the morning's labour carry into the afternoon, your motions blending with the ambient sounds of the household. Scholars still debate how much servants felt ownership over their labour, balancing pride in execution against the strict hierarchy that governed their lives. You carry both senses now, competence and obedience intertwined in each gesture. You navigate the narrow spaces, avoiding collisions with other staff, your awareness acute. Each path is calculated, measured, subtle. Mistakes might be minor, but they are noticed and consequences ripple. You adjust continuously, your body anticipating what is not yet demanded, but likely to appear. You approach a final surface in this room, a table that has collected a small assortment of items previously unattended. You straighten each piece, aligning edges, centering objects, smoothing cloths. The room takes on a quiet order under your hands. The afternoon sun falls further now, softening the firelight and casting gentle shadows. You pause for a fraction of a moment, feeling the warmth against your skin, the residual heat from labour, the slow pulse of fatigue in your arms. Your awareness extends slightly outward. The house remains active, yet within it you move as if time itself bends around your work. Each step, each adjustment, each carried item is part of a chain that must remain unbroken yet invisible to the family who occupies these rooms. Another tray is prepared. Another surface is smoothed. Another minor task completed. The flow continues without end. Your body responds automatically, honed by repetition, aware of timing, anticipating needs. And as you finish this cycle, you sense the evening beginning to approach. The light shifts, shadows lengthen. The rhythm changes subtly, signaling the closing of the day while requiring no announcement. You step back, hands empty, body steady. There is no pause, but there is a subtle recognition in the change of tone. The day is not ended, but it is moving toward its final acts, and you will move with it seamlessly, without question, carrying all the weight of what has come before into what is still to be done. The house begins to shift as the evening settles in. Light changes again, softer now, more golden, touching surfaces. You pass dozens of times today, yet revealing new details in its warmth. Shadows stretch longer, mingling with the remnants of firelight, and the air carries both the faint scent of meals completed and the cooler, fresher tones of windows left slightly open. You move through it all with hands ready and awareness alert, knowing the last set of duties must be completed before any semblance of rest is allowed. You step back into the kitchen where trays, cloths and utensils await your attention. The warmth of the fire has deepened, and yet there is a briskness in the air, a quiet reminder that your day is not yet over. You gather a tray with precise care, ensuring balance and control. The cups, once washed and dried, are positioned evenly, the edges aligned perfectly. Even small misplacements could be noticed and corrected, and you have long since learned that prevention is preferable to reaction. An established fact from records of London households around 1700 is that evening work was often as demanding as morning preparation, if not more so. Servants carried the responsibilities of clean-up organisation and the maintenance of order long after the family had begun to settle. You feel that weight now embodied in the careful movements of your body and the measured breaths that accompany them. You carry the tray into a room where shadows fall thickly across furniture. The light from the fire catches each polished surface, reflecting gently off silver glass and ceramic. You place each item, deliberately adjusting slightly to achieve symmetry, restoring order that might be seen and appreciated only by the eyes of those above. The room transforms under your hands, a quiet testament to effort made invisible. A quirky tidbit found in some diaries is that servants sometimes spoke to objects as they worked, murmuring instructions to themselves to maintain focus or rhythm. While you do not voice anything aloud, the idea resonates. Your hands and mind coordinate as though the objects themselves understand the order they must follow. You step back from the completed tray and wipe your palms along the fabric of your apron. The sensation is familiar and grounding. Muscles ache slightly, a steady fatigue accumulated over hours of lifting, bending, and precise motion. Yet there is a quiet satisfaction that pulses alongside the weariness, a recognition that the household's appearance has been restored through your hands alone. Historians still debate whether this constant attentiveness fostered a sense of pride or merely reinforced the unyielding hierarchy of service. You feel both simultaneously the careful craftsmanship of your work and the underlying awareness of your place within the house. Your gaze moves upward as you ascend the stairs again, carrying the last items to be returned or adjusted. The light through the upper windows is dimmer, signalling that evening is taking hold outside, yet the rooms remain alive with subtle movement. Each step is deliberate, balancing weight and anticipation, maintaining control even in seemingly minor motions. Once the last items are replaced, the final surfaces wiped and the fire monitored, you take a moment to let your posture settle. The day's labour has left impressions on your body, from the gentle ache in your arms to the fatigue in your legs. Yet there is a rhythm to it now, a pulse that aligns with the quiet movement of the household as it approaches night. Some scholars have debated whether the long hours and unbroken cycles of domestic service shaped a different perception of time for servants compared to those above stairs. You sense the truth in it. Hours blend seamlessly, one task flowing into the next, leaving your awareness stretched across the continuity of duty rather than confined to minutes or moments. You pause briefly in the attic above the rooms you have tended all day. The narrow space, the straw pallet, and the sloping beams await you. They have held your body since morning and will hold it again tonight. You settle onto the thin bedding, feeling the accumulated weight of the day pressing into your limbs, a steady reminder of endurance and resilience. The fire's warmth lingers faintly below, and the last residual sense of cooking and labour drift upward. You close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep fully, but to release the tension you carried, while maintaining precision and care. There is comfort in the stillness, even if it is brief. Your mind replays the day in fragments. The trays carried the cups washed, the linen folded. These steps measured the coordination with others, the silent awareness of the household's expectations, the subtle pulse of the city beyond the walls. All of it threads together a continuous weave that defines the life you inhabit. A quirky observation from personal accounts is that some servants felt a sense of quiet satisfaction at day's end, not from recognition, but from the knowledge that their work had passed unseen yet perfectly executed. You feel that satisfaction now, subtle, almost hidden beneath fatigue, but present nonetheless. You adjust the pillow beneath your head and draw a slow breath. The body relaxes further, the heartbeat slowing. You feel the layers of tension peel away, leaving only warmth, awareness, and the memory of motion. The night settles fully now. Sounds soften, movement cease above and below, and the house holds its form steady and unbroken. You lie quietly, listening to distant echoes, feeling the gentle pull of sleep, knowing that tomorrow will return to rhythm once again. You close your eyes, fully letting the day dissolve into rest. The firelight flickers faintly through the windows below, and the house, your world for the day, remains steady, waiting for the cycle to begin anew. The day has finally drawn to a close, and you lie quietly on your narrow straw pallet, feeling the softness of the thin blanket against your shoulders and the gentle slope of the attic ceiling above you. The air is cooler now, gentler as it drifts through the small window, carrying with it the distant sound of the city slowing. The hum of movement and chatter has faded, leaving only a quiet murmur that rises faintly from the streets far below. Your body settles into the contours of the pallet, the muscles gradually unwinding after hours of precise constant labour. Every breath brings a small sense of release, a soft awareness that the tension accumulated through the day is slowly dissipating. Your shoulders sink a little more, your arms rest heavier at your sides, your hands loosen completely from the gripping of objects and tools. The warmth lingering in your skin from earlier firelight mixes with the cooler air, creating a gentle gradient that seems to cradle your body in its subtle contrast. The faint scent of the day remains smoke from the hearth, damp from cloth and water, traces of meals all layered and quietly familiar. You reflect on the day, letting the memories drift gently without urgency. Each tray carried each cup, washed each folded linen, each careful step up and down the stairs, all form a tapestry of motion and presence, quiet achievements that do not need recognition to have meaning. A sense of resilience has grown in you today, not sudden, not dramatic, but deep and unspoken, carried in your posture, your breath, and the rhythm of your heartbeat. Even small moments of awareness, a pause for the warmth of the fire, a glance at sunlight spilling softly through a window, remind you of the subtle threads that connect effort, patience, and endurance. The quiet stretches around you, and sleep begins to settle like a gentle tide. Your eyelids grow heavier, and the motions of the day are replayed more softly, as if the house itself has exhaled along with you. There is no rush, no demand, only a sense of gentle continuity. The city beyond will continue, the rooms below will stir again tomorrow, and you will rise once more into rhythm, carrying the memory of today as you move. For now, the body, mind, and spirit are allowed to soften fully. The sounds fade, the air calms, and all that remains is warmth, awareness, and the subtle pulse of life slowing into rest. Your breath deepens slower, more even, and the quiet darkness holds you safely. All is steady, all is calm. Sleep takes you gently. Sweet dreams.